Welcome back to the Den of Tools. Howdy ho, guys and gals, it's Red, your friendly neighborhood tool bear, back again here in the Den of Tools. And today we're here to talk about another one of our good, bad, and the ugly. And this time, in our crosshairs, is Ridgid. Yeah, Ridgid power tools, they've been around for a long time, but there's a lot you may know, even more you may not know, and we're going to jump into it. So let's get started. Well, the first thing we gotta say that really stands out in Ridgid's favor is that they have a decent sized line of tools. There's a great selection of tools out there. Now, while they are far from the smallest line of tools out there, they are by no means near the largest line of tools. They're in a happy middle kind of ground. And you're going to find that's sort of a theme here when we talk about Ridgid. One of my favorite parts of the Ridgid line is their Gen 5X tools. These are some really nice, brushless, solid made, we call them prosumer, but these kind of border in. They're in that crossover zone where you'll even see pros using this line of tools. They're really that good. Now, the other good thing about Ridgid is they're value priced. They're not bargain basement, but they're not high dollar either. Now, one thing is though, since they've switched over from what I can tell to almost an entirely line of brushless, they used to have brushed as well as brushless. Now you're kind of getting a little bit higher, so you're looking at the average sale price of their starter set here for around $170, which isn't bad when you consider you're getting a pretty decent little set. You're getting a drill driver, an impact, you're getting two 1.5 batteries, a charger, and a nice bag. Actually rather like the bags they come with. Now, that said, they also have a 12-volt line of tools. Now, these are very similar to the Milwaukee, and as you know, if you've been around the channel, the Bear's not a fan of the in-the-handle battery system, or what they often call a torpedo-style battery. It makes the handle a little bit larger, and trust me, the Bear's got some decent sized paws here, right? They're not tiny or anything, but even I find them a little bit cumbersome to work with from time to time. Now, the other thing we need to talk about is their Job Max. So Job Max takes multi-tool to a whole nother level. They've got a corded, they've got a cordless, they've got a 12 volt, and what this allows you to do is not only the regular multi-tool kind of heads, but you can take the entire head off and attach entirely different types of tools. There's a jigsaw, there is an impact hammer, there's one of those little side-cutting scroll saw kind of, not scroll saw, what do you call it? It's, I forgot the term. It's kind of almost like a router bit. It's great for drywall, that kind of stuff, cutout tools. You've got a ratcheting wrench, you've got a 90 degree, you've got a tiny recip. They've got a ton of stuff. Now, the other thing is, I should mention, by the way, these heads are also interchangeable with the Ryobi set. Now, somebody mentioned that there was a Milwaukee one. I haven't seen it. Maybe that's true. I should look into that some more. But anyway, this is a great setup of tools for people who have limited space or have limited ability to invest in like some full-size tools. I've often recommended these for people who, like, say, full-time in an RV and you're a do-it-yourselfer and you want to be able to work on it. In fact, I even sent some of these to our friends on Sailing Zingaro so he could work on his boat. By the way, if you haven't checked out that channel, you got to do it. It's a great channel. And then not only do we have this base system here, they've even stepped it up with their, what do they call this thing? Like the Super Hypermax Gizmo Wonder. They have some silly names. The one thing I don't care about Ridgid is they get a bit into the, like, Extreme X kind of name kind of things. But this almost kind of justifies it. I know it looks like a sci-fi ray gun, but it really is yet another version of their Job Max, but for even, more powerful applications. Speaking of more power, that's the other thing we got to talk about. They've got the Octane System, complete with their line of Octane batteries. These are really getting into that pro level of tool. You got Bluetooth access, control, tracking, all that stuff that you'd want on a job site. These are a phenomenal line of tools, and very similar to what you would see, say, from the high power ones from Milwaukee. And also, I gotta say, the Ridgid chargers, they've got some excellent chargers. The space charger here, the single charger is excellent, and they have even a dual charger system with, you notice they're down there, there's two USBs, two 110 pass-throughs. These are decent, or better than decent chargers. They're really quite nice to have. Now, they don't have any of the 6-port or anything like that, but you can daisy chain these together to create a whole charging station. Isn't that nice? And also, Ridgid really innovates. Man, their lighting systems are phenomenal. You've got, right behind me, the regular, kind of wide area light, the gooseneck kind of light, spotlights, and the light tree over there, and then their Weebelo doesn't fall down light. You just toss out in the middle of a job site and get some lighting going on. They're really pretty cool. And also, we got to talk about, if we're talking about the good, we got to talk about Shop Vacs. Wet Dry Vacs. Shop Vacs a brand. The Bear's showing his age here. Anyway, the point of this is, Ridgid is widely considered by many guys to be the default standard when it comes to, wet dry vacs. They're that good. And there you may find one, brand that makes one better one here or one better one there. But across the brand, these are the far better than average, often the best in class kind of shop vacs that you're going to find. Now, one of the other tools we got to talk about here is the 10-inch dual bevel sliding miter saw. This is, I know a lot of people are like, 10-inch? What about it? Now, this saw is so good that they tried to discontinue it, and people revolted. I mean, yeah, the peasants are always revolting, I know, right?
I've come on the most urgent of business. It is said that the people are revolting.
You said it. They stink on ice.
Anyway, the point is that this saw is that good. If you're looking for a small sliding miter saw, it's really hard to beat the Ridgid 10-inch. It's that good a saw. And another win for Ridgid is their pack-out system. I realize pack-out, again, is a name brand, whatever. They've got one of the least expensive, very durable, very easy to use, packing, storage, carry-out, whatever you want to call it, luggage systems, whatever. I really like them, and the nice thing about them is that they're generic in that basically you can use them with about any power tool lineup, and they have a nice combination of them. There's some other ones here not shown, of course, and they're way more affordable than like the Milwaukee ones or most of the other lines that you'll see. I often have stated that I wish Harbor Freight would come out with something like this, but until that happens, for the budget-minded consumer, this is pretty much your only option right here. Now, something else from Ridgid that you just gotta basically just say, man up, bear up in my case, and be like, this is the sander you gotta get. If you talk to any woodworkers, you go into any woodworker forums, inevitably, I think it's like half the people I talk to end up buying the sander. And there's a reason. It's not just a belt sander. It's not just a spindle sander. It's an oscillating edge belt spindle sander. It's got everything you need in one sanding station with decent dust control. And it's excellent. It really does its job really well. It eliminates, an extra tool. You can do all sorts of, miters and all sorts of stuff on it. It's I can't talk enough about it. I've had this sander. It's a great sander. But you know what? I ended up selling the one that I had. Now, mine wasn't new. I bought a really old used one of the old off-white kind of cases. It was that old. And I ended up replacing it with this. Now, maybe you've heard the Bear talk about it before, but this is the Win 6524 oscillating belt and spindle sander. Looks pretty similar, doesn't it? Yeah, in fact, the Bear did some research and found the factory in China that makes this. And, typically in China, there's dozens of factories that make the same thing. In this case, there really is only one, and they do make that sander for Ridgid, but then they make this version as well. And it's basically a slimmed down. It's about 20% smaller, but the thing is, the belt action, the belts that go on these and the spindles that go on these are exactly the same. I was able to take the belt off of my Ridgid one, not just the belt, but the entire unit off my Ridgid one, that's the top whole belt assembly there, and put it on the Win and get it to work. They're the same thing. They're the same motors underneath. Everything is the same about them, except they changed the color. They got rid of the miter slot, and they, which honestly I never used, and they made it a little bit smaller. And a little bit cheaper. This actually sells for quite a bit less than the Ridgid. Now, how much? Now, this price does vary because, China shipping, tariffs, all that stuff, it jumps around. But right now, just doing some quick, overview shopping kind of stuff, the Ridgid's selling for well over 200, or a good bit over 200. The Win's around 140. Now, look at this. Titan or sorry, Triton, Grizzly, and I don't remember what company that is, Blue Star or something, I don't know. There's Eagle, maybe it was. There's a whole bunch of generic ones. They're all using the exact same mold. It's the same one. You know, the company has an exclusive contract with Ridgid, but they just reduced it in size and they're selling it out the back door to everyone else. And I gotta say, the Win is as good as any of these other ones. Might as well go with that one. They're easy to get a hold of. You can buy them on Amazon and whatnot. Now, one of the conversations that always comes up when we talk tools is, what about the warranty? And Ridgid comes with a really decent standard 3-year warranty. Now, I know. Hold on, guys, all you Ridgid fanboys. I know. We're going to get there. All right, we're going to talk about that lifetime warranty. Note the asterisk. We're going to get to that later, though, okay? The other thing we got to talk about for Ridgid is Direct Tools. That is directtoolsoutlet.com. This is the factory outlet. You can buy online, or you can also go into some of their stores. Now, unfortunately, for those of us on the West Coast, I don't think there's any stores west of, like, Illinois or something. So we're kind of stuck with shopping online. But the fact of the matter is, they've got a ton of stuff that you can get for your Ridgid lineup. And it's a great way to buy into the system at even a lower price point. And last but not least, in the win category for Ridgid, is their social media outreach. They really do try to stay engaged with the consumer. This here is a recent posting on their Instagram page. It's Ridgid Octane Week, and they are giving away, I think it's this tool right here. I'll put a link down below if you're on Instagram. If you go over to Instagram, you post on their post, and you link a friend who's not already associated with, or not already liking their page, or however Instagram works. You know, I don't know how the Cubs or kids do it these days. But anyway, if you tag them. That's it. If you tag them right up the back, if you tag them in the post, then you'll get entered to win. It'd be a cool tool to get if you are in the Ridgid platform, or are planning to get into the Ridgid platform. Now we've talked about with good. Now we got to talk about the bad. Sorry, it has to happen. And the first thing we have to talk about when it comes to the bad is, if you want to buy Ridgid tools, you have a couple of options. Like, seriously, a couple of options. You can either go through the Direct Tools outlet, or you can go to the Home Despot. Yeah, that's pretty much your options. Now, I have compiled a list of everywhere else where you can buy tools that are also authorized resellers. There you go. Pick your choice. Those are all the places besides the outlet and Home Depot where you can buy your tools and still expect your warranty to get honored. Because, guys, I say this about all the brands, if you don't buy your tool at an authorized reseller, like say you buy it on Amazon or something, and the guy who's selling on Amazon or eBay or wherever isn't on the authorized list, guess what? You could not be covered. I was going to say you are not going to be covered, but they may have maybe a good day. They may have had a good date night with the missus or something, and they may be in a chipper mood. But the fact of the matter is, they don't have to honor it. In fact, even if you buy it from somebody who is quote-unquote authorized, but you buy it through a channel, like such as eBay, that channel's not authorized, and you could lose out. Now, moving on. We talked about the chargers before, and maybe you caught that when I showed you that combo up front. The charger that they come with these days is not the ones they had back in my day. Now, if you go back and you've watched any of the channel for some time, we've been around for 4 years at this point. I used to be a Ridgid fan bear. I had all Ridgid tools, and I really liked them. In fact, I still like the tools, but they've been cutting some corners here and there. And the first corner they cut was they got rid of that really nice charger, and now they give you this little block here. And I'm sorry, but it's not the same thing. And next on the list there is something that we're going to call, I don't know if I want to call it bad so much as just meh. And that is, a lot of the Ridgid tools fall in that category of the meh. Their pneumatic tools, their drill press. I mean, when was the last time you had a friend who said to you, man, I can't wait to run out and buy that Ridgid drill press? Their planer and both their planers, I guess, or I guess what we call a joiner and a planer. They're decent. They are. You'll see a lot of woodworkers use them, but as they move on, they always move up. These are not bad to get started, but you'll see few people who stick with them over the long haul. And next, I got to talk about the Ridgid sander. It's not bad. It's a little bulky. The batteries, setting on it, or where it sits, I should say, on it, makes it a little bit cumbersome. You can't really get down low on it and get a good grasp on it. And on top of it, man, it just eats those batteries. Eats them like frickin', campers, man, just snacking on them. It's ridiculous how quickly they go through them. And it's now, I realize that there's, that's a common cause with cordless sanders, which is part of the reason why the Bear never usually recommends cordless sanders. But this is the first one to turn me off on them, and maybe I'm just soured ever since then. Tile saws. Meh. Bench and stationary tools. These are, wow, there's not many options when it comes to the table saws, these days, especially when you're looking at stationary ones. Yeah, you basically got the Ridgid and you got the Delta unless you want to jump up into one of the premium brands, like going to one of the specialty stores. You can get one of the higher end Deltas, a Jet or something like that. But if you're just the average Joe, your choices are between Delta and the Ridgid. And honestly, I can't see any reason to choose the Ridgid. It's decent. It's not bad. And the job site saw, it's a good job site saw. It is. But there's far better ones out there. And at the end of the day, you know who Ridgid reminds me of? That girl Anna. We all know an Anna. She's that girl who's the daughter of your mom's friend from like high school or something. And she's constantly, mom's trying to constantly hook you up with her. And you're like, Mom, she's sweet and all, but meh. I mean, let's be honest. Anna is, she's no Jasmine, right? The fact of the matter is, Ridgid isn't really who you think it is. Ridgid is this. Well, actually this. Ridgid is a professional line of tools, both hand tools and power tools, for the trade, specifically mostly targeted towards plumbers, with some stuff for electrical and some other stuff as well. And that's really who Ridgid is. But now, why is Ridgid red with tools like that, and the Bear's wearing the normal orange that you normally see? Well, that's because Ridgid is owned by a company called Emerson. Emerson doesn't like to trifle with that silly consumer kind of stuff, so they contacted their buddies over at TTI and said, hey, TTI, tell you what, we don't want to do the consumer grade stuff. Why don't we license Ridgid to you, and you can build it? How'd that work for you? Now, for those of you who don't know who TTI is the parent company of people like Milwaukee and Ryobi. Now, they have some other stuff, Homelight, Empire, Stiletto, Hart, other things. But when it comes to tools, power tools specifically, Milwaukee and Ryobi stand out. But there's one kind of in the middle there that doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's where you'll find Anna. Or as I know her, Anna Elizabeth Guntheisen or whatever. Or it's better yet, AEG. Now, who's AEG, you ask? Well, AEG is TTI's European and Australian line of power tools. Do you see a family resemblance now? That's right, guys and gals. When TTI got that call from Emerson, they were like, how can we do this? Oh, I know. We've got an entire line of power tools we don't sell in the U.S. Let's just slap the logo on them. I mean, literally, there's nothing different about these tools. They just peel off the AEG, put Ridgid on it, and that is what you see on store shelves. Now, why is this part of the bad? Well, because AEG is the tool line that TTI really owns. They don't own Ridgid. Ridgid is a licensed name that has, a long history behind it. It's, whereas Milwaukee is kind of a zombie brand. They're a completely different company than they used to be, much like DeWalt and Porter Cable and stuff. Ridgid is more like a doppelganger brand, where they've just basically taken on someone else's image to enter the consumer/prosumer market. And for that reason, that to TTI kind of makes them, rather than their beloved son, more like a redheaded stepchild. Sorry, but that's the fact of the matter, because at any moment, Emerson could up and decide, you know what, we're not going to continue this license, we're going to go with somebody else. So there's only so much that TTI is willing to invest in this company. All right, we had the good, we had the bad, and now we got to be honest and talk about the ugly. And there's really only one part that's really ugly for me with Ridgid, and it's pretty much the reason I stopped buying them. And that is that lifetime warranty, because the fact of the matter is, it's not really a warranty, and they're very specific on that. It's a lifetime service agreement. Now, we're going to get to the specifics as to why that's important, but the first step is when you get your tool, what you have to do is you have 90 days to register it. So your first stop after getting home is to head over here to the Welcome to Ridgid Registration Center, where you're going to have to get your receipt and cross your T's and dot your I's and make sure that you document everything. In fact, they're going to send you a confirmation code or letter, or I don't remember what it is these days, and you're going to have to print that out and add it to your files as well. Because if you don't have that, they're not going to help you. In fact, let's look at the conditions of the Ridgid brand lifetime service agreement. Customers have 90 days from date of purchase to register tools for LSA. Once all conditions of the registration process are fulfilled, the tool service coverage lasts the lifetime of the original purchaser. Now remember, guys and gals, that's pretty much the case for all tools. Now, to access the Ridgid brand lifetime service agreement, you must register your qualified tool, blah, 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 stationary power tool, blah, 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 anything that's valid. You have to check and make sure it's actually available for the LSA, because some things are not. Now, you're going to have to go to the registration page. You're going to have to create an account. You're going to have to log into the account. Then once you do all that, you're going to have to enter all the information. You're going to have to give them all your contact info. They're going to have it on file. This is their way of getting your personal information. And next, we need to talk about what is covered. The LSA covers all defects and many parts and wear parts in properly maintained tools. Note the properly maintained part. What is not covered? A lot of guys seem to think that this is like one of the, like, say, like the old Craftsman or Harbor Freight kind of warranties where, you know, basically you could crush this thing, take it back in, and they're going to replace it. That's not the case. The lifetime service agreement only covers wear or failure of the tool under normal usage and proper maintenance. It does not cover any malfunction, failure, or direct result from misuse, abuse, neglect, alteration, modification, or repair by anyone other than the authorized service center for Ridgid, blah, 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 blah. Any damage or malfunction inflicted upon the tool by the user, external sources, or failure to comply with the warnings and instructions in the operation manual are not covered. Consumable accessories provided with the tool are not limited. Yeah, they're not covering it. Certain products categories are not covered. Well, the categories include, but not limited to, and they talk about the categories and radios, accessories, and all this other stuff. So don't make the mistake of thinking that anything with a Ridgid name on it's covered. It's not. And in fact, the matter is, one of the issues I found is I was talking about Ridgid on the channel and talking like, hey, I love these tools. They have this lifetime warranty agreement. I'd never had to use it. And I had lots of people contacting me saying, I'll never buy Ridgid again. They screwed me over. I had everything I thought I needed. You know, I tried to do everything. I crossed my T's, dot my I's, and I still got denied. And I was started looking at this going, what's going on here? But let's talk about this a little bit some more, these terms and conditions, shall we? Additional limitations. Lifetime service agreement is not a warranty. It does not alter or limit the 3-year limited service warranty provided with your product and is not intended to create an applied warranty. So why do they put that in there? Because in many states, the word warranty has a legal obligation to the company, and they have to provide the warranty in that manner that is specified in that state. By changing the name and calling it a service agreement and making you register for it, they get out of those regulations, and now they're free to do their own thing because there's no regulations really on a lifetime service agreement. It's an agreement between you and them, and you're agreeing to this, so they can pretty much do whatever they want. Often some of the little tricks that they do is they tell you, well, you know what? You need to prepay to send it in. Yeah, they're going to actually make you pay beforehand or give a credit card at the very least before you send the tool in. And then if they determine that it's not covered under the service agreement, they're going to fix it anyway and charge you without your prior authorization. That's just going to happen. I've seen a lot of situations where people were using it on the job site. They weren't doing anything strenuous to it. Something about it died. They took it back. It's not covered. You know, people talk about, well, the batteries are covered. Well, you know what? The batteries are covered if you buy it in a combo kit. Usually when you buy it outside the combo kit, those batteries aren't covered. You've got to document the serial number off of everything. You buy a big combo kit, you got everything, the charger, the batteries, everything. There's not one serial number, and you got to keep track of all these, and you got to keep the registry. You better be good at filing your files and keeping them and knowing where they are, because if something comes down, you're going to need them, because Ridgid has a tendency, and I've done a lot of research in this, guys and gals. I'm not saying this because I hate the company, but they do have a tendency to bend over backwards to squirm their way out of the LSA. And on top of that, there's some other issues that we're going to talk about. One of those is how you obtain service. Now, you have to contact an authorized Ridgid service center. And there's a number you can call to figure out what it is. You can try going to their website. But the fact of the matter, a lot of people think this is an authorized service center. And in some cases it is. In some cases it isn't. And in some cases it's a shmaybe. Yeah, the Home Depots, not every Home Depot, in fact, I think not even the majority of Home Depots are actually authorized service centers for Ridgid. Now, Ridgid is the store brand, but Home Depot doesn't own the brand, unlike you see with something like Harbor Freight, where Harbor Freight owns all the brands that they sell in the store. Ridgid has, or should say TTI, has an exclusive licensing agreement with Home Depot to sell Ridgid brand products in their store and nowhere else. That becomes then their home, their home store, as it were, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be the ones standing behind it. Now, what I found, and this is what really upset me, was I contacted Ridgid and was told that my local Home Depot was in fact a service center. I went down there and was then told, yes, there is a service center there, but you can't access it through the retail storefront. And no, there's no back door to go to either. You have to mail your package, your tool, to them. I'm standing right here. You can't just take it back there, and was told no. I got a little grizzly on them all the way up to the manager and found out, no, sorry, they're mutually exclusive and that the storefront can't touch the product. I was baffled by this, and I went online and I found out that this was not just a random occurrence, that this happens all the time. There's even cases where people are like, well, the guy who ended service isn't here today, so we don't know when he's going to be back. It's just a complete, you know what. And I don't even understand how they can get away with this sort of thing, saying that they've got service centers when they're non-accessible or non-existent. Anyway, the point of the matter is, you may think that it's going to be convenient, it's going to be simple and easy to use, but the truth is, it's far from that in many cases. In fact, in most cases, you're probably going to end up doing this. Having to box up that product, ship it off, hope that they don't charge you, and get it back eventually. Well, there you have it. There's the good and the bad and the ugly of Ridgid. As I said, the Bear, I like the tools. I think they're excellent tools. Are they as top tier as Milwaukee? No, I find them to be a little bit on the bulky side. I think a lot of the overmolding and stuff is way overdone, trying to make it look extreme and crazy and octane-y and super mega whatever. It's a little bit on the, kind of teenager-ish kind of side. But they're decent tools. They really are. They have a great lineup of tools, but there's something weird going on with the relationship with Emerson and TTI and the AEG thing, where TTI, they really stand behind Milwaukee. They've done an excellent job of making that Milwaukee 5-year warranty one of the best in the biz. And Ryobi is an excellent entry-level, tool system, despite what Chaka likes to say. And you have to be here for the live streams on Sunday to understand what we're talking about. But the point of the matter is that Ridgid could be an excellent middle-of-the-road prosumer kind of package, but in the end, their top-selling feature, the LSA, lets many people down, and that's often why, or I should say usually why, you don't hear the Bear talking about Ridgid very often. It makes it hard for me to recommend a company that doesn't stand behind their product. Anyway, thanks for stopping by and checking out the good, the bad, and the ugly on Ridgid. We're going to do more of these. Make sure you comment down below. Let me know which one you think the Bear should do next. Also, be sure to check out the merch down there. While you're down there, it's right under the video down there. We got sweaters and cups and stickers and all sorts of good stuff. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, ring that bell, make sure you get all the updates. Thank you again to everyone who's a member. If you want to consider being a member and supporting the channel, we really appreciate it. Anyway, that's all the Bear has for you today. You all take care, God bless, and as always, shine on.